Mixtape Stories, where science fiction, humor, Gen X nostalgia, and music meet.
You don't have any idea what's really going on here, do you? I'm a pilot for Orcon. Do you think you were the only time-traveling company in town? Did you? Oh my god, I'm sorry, but you two just stepped on the toes of the largest cross-temporal corporate conglomerate in known existence.
I was stunned. So was Donna. A cross-temporal corporate conglomerate? I didn't even know what that was, but it sounded ominous.
Oh, you two. You really have no idea about us, do you?
I wanted to call a timeout in this whole interrogation thing because this really wasn't going according to plan.
Look, it's obvious that your little company, what is it called, Shimmer? You managed to tunnel into this timeline, and you didn't know that you stumbled onto an Orcon claim. Alright, I'm gonna do you guys a real solid and not mention your existence to the other pilots, because, frankly, I don't want your deaths on my conscience. But when this temporal cyst ends, I recommend you portal back to where you came from and tell your bosses to forget this place. Keep your timeline holdings as best hidden as possible.
Roy just fired off a mouthful, and I got about 2% of what he said. He thought we were employees from some time travel company, like that was a thing. He also mentioned something about a temporal cyst. I was going to press him on that when Donna stepped up.
I'm afraid we can't do that, Roy. We're not going anywhere. This is our home. My home. And you and your fucking Orcon pilots blow it up in 40 years.
What are you talking about?
The antimatter reactor you'll build, despite all the warnings, despite all the engineers and scientists pleading for you to not do it, you push it on us in 2035, and the containment field fails. So no, Roy, I will not let you do it. I don't care who you're with or who this Orcon is. I will not allow you to cause our annihilation.
Now it was Roy who looked like he had just seen the series premiere of Black Mirror.
I didn't... Do you have any evidence of this, or am I to just take your word for it?
Donna took off her iPalm, accessed some of the downloaded news footage, and emitted the video onto the wall. We spent the next several minutes watching the captured satellite footage of the cancerous plume over the Gulf Coast, drone footage showing thousands of miles of devastation, journalists reporting on mobilization by the Russian, Iranian, and Chinese militaries, and finally, the report of a nuclear strike.
With no structure, still standing.
Roy's mouth was agape.
None of that was supposed to happen, guys. I swear I would never.
I don't care what your intentions were, Roy. It happened. You were warned repeatedly by experts. The federal government put injunction after injunction, and you still did it.
I knelt down beside Roy, who was strapped into the chair. Look, I believe you when you say you had no intention of destroying the world, but do you think it's possible that maybe your bosses might have?
Absolutely not. This timeline was a jewel of a find.
This timeline is a jewel? Really? Why, because we have the Spice Girls? I couldn't help but think about what kind of dumpster fire awaited me if I ever returned home. Jewel of a timeline indeed.
No, you see... Okay, so there was this failed energy company, Conway. Our creative causality department believed that if we could acquire and save it, it could lay the foundation to power our quantum network.
Roy saw the deer in the headlights look on my face.
You don't know what that is, do you?
Let's just assume I'm a caveman and go real slow.
Quantum mainframes are how Orcon is able to portal and communicate through different timelines. Being in an entangled state, a quantum device in one timeline can interact with a quantum in another. It's the foundation of Orcon's portaling. It's Odd that you don't know this. I mean, how do you portal?
I didn't want to divulge the fact that we weren't a competing corporation, just two shimwads stuck in the past. We're not from another timeline, just from the future.
Ah, simple linear time travel. Got it. Very quaint. So, quantum mainframes... Hey, look, could you please take the needle out of my arm and untie me? I swear I don't have any intention on running or notifying my people. We just have a lot to discuss, and this is kind of uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry about that. Donna gave me the meanest side eye, but I cut his bonds, and Roy proceeded to break us off something. This is the Reader's Digest. Quantum computers are able to interact with each other across alternate realities, or timelines as they call it. They even share power with each other, allowing Orcon to send resources across different timelines. In timelines without quantum computers like Here and Now, pilots like Roy are sent at enormous cost. They can only send a few, and these pilots set up the quantum mainframe. Once Roy sets up the quantum mainframe, it would give Orcon unencumbered access into this timeline. But this reality wasn't just another acquisition, it was special. Orcon's creative causality department discovered that in this timeline, there was an energy company called Conway that tried to get into tech but went bankrupt and folded when a computer virus crippled their network. So, there's at least one reality where our plan worked. Their eggheads believed that Conway Energy could be useful in constructing an antimatter reactor, which would produce obscene amounts of energy, enough to power their entire network. Because remember, quantum mainframes share power as well as information between timelines. Orcon sent Roy to prevent the virus from destroying Conway, lead the company into solvency, and become the CEO, where he'd acquire Google to build the quantum mainframe and acquire Amazon while they were still just selling books online, and use their profits in the next century to pay for the cost of fabricating antiprotons in large quantities.
Well, now that you know what happens, you're not going to go through with it, right?
Roy grimaced.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. After knowing what will happen, you can't possibly be okay with going forward with this.
Of course not, Donna. What kind of monster do you take me for? But you don't understand. I'm not the only pilot here. If I falter, there's other pilots who will take over.
Other pilots? Like who?
Skinner is one, and there are two others. But Skinner, he's a real piece of work.
Yeah, you're telling me. Over the months working with him, I had come to know what a sleaze Jeff Skinner was. He hosted wild parties on his yacht and surrounded himself with girls half his age, who he referred to as trim.
Skinner comes from one of the prime Orcon timelines, and he sees every other timeline as just another resource to tap. Even other affiliate timelines like my own are beneath him. I'm from a timeline close to yours and 100 years up the stream. I always loved this decade, 1990s. Mine isn't that different from yours, so when I was selected, I didn't have to read up too much on the cultural references.
Ah, like knowing the Jar Jar Binks reference. Roy rolled his eyes.
Yeah, I sort of stepped in that one, didn't I? But the point is, even if I shut this whole thing down, Skinner won't.
We sat there a moment while he nursed the rash skin caused by the duct tape.
You know, if it hadn't been for us being an assist, things might have been worse.
What's the cyst thing you keep talking about?
I'm guessing you guys don't know much about cross-temporal dynamics, huh?
I skipped that elective in college.
Don't look at me. I was a philosophy major.
Timelines branch out. It's a natural occurrence. The whole multiverse theory about all possible outcomes actually occurring is largely true, though most of the minor splintering regrows back into one singular timeline. But there is natural splintering of different outcomes into different timelines. Then you add time travel, and with it comes some artificially created timelines. If one timeline at a particular section of its stream is interrupted repeatedly, Well, understand, I'm just a pilot, not a cosmological pathologist, so my understanding is limited, but repeated insertions into a timeline at a certain point can cause it to harden, sort of like the way a body protects itself from an infection, hence the term cyst. Right now, things are unalterable. Nobody can change what will happen. That's why Skinner and I are on our own right now. I mean, it takes extreme amounts of power for a pilot to tunnel into a different timeline without a quantum computer on the destination side under the best of conditions. But this particular section of the timeline hardened into a cyst. We can't leave it.
And then it hit me. When I tried to shimmer back to 2018, I couldn't. Now it made sense. So what you're saying is that whatever happens next, there are no redos.
That's right. If someone was able to create a different outcome within a hardened timeline, instead of fraying into another timeline, it would create a paradox and the timeline would have a rapid disassembly.
That doesn't sound good.
It's not. The paradox would pour dark energy from other timelines and rip the decohered reality apart.
So we lived inside a cyst. And instead of contending with a lone douche canoe who snagged my app, Donna and I were up against a cross-temporal corporate behemoth. Yeah, so it was one of those kind of weekends where you learn about the true nature of the universe and a little bit about ourselves, like our capacity to commit murder. It goes without saying that my abduction, drugging, and threatening to murder made for an awkward Monday morning water cooler moment with Roy. But at least we were on the same side now. I was in over my head, so I found myself calling Mom and telling her everything. She was someone who knew my deal, and she seemed to have an intuitive understanding with these sort of Whovian timey-wimey things. I was on the phone with her, yammering about Orcon and being stuck in some sort of temporal cyst. So what that means is whatever happens, it's already set in place. There's no mulligans.
Wow, sweetheart, that's something.
She was listening, but I could tell she was also busy grading her high school students' final semester papers. And I won't be able to return to 2018 until I don't know when.
And you say that while we're in this cyst, that everything is set in stone, whatever will happen is unalterable, and that goes for you and Orcon.
Exactly. So you see how screwed we are. I felt kind of bad telling Mom all of my shimmer problems, especially while she was grading finals, but I missed talking with her. She chuckled. This is not a laughing matter, Mom. It's a crisis.
You know, sweetheart, the Chinese have the same word for crisis as they do for opportunity.
Okay, I walked into that one.
Which I like to call Chrysitunity.
All things considered, Mom was right. It was, I can't believe I'm saying this, it was a chrysitunity. This temporal cyst meant I couldn't shimmer up, but neither could Orcon add any assets into this timeline. It leveled the playing field between Team Orcon, which dominated entire realities, and Team Shimwad, which consisted of, well, us three.
So that's what you're calling us? Shimwad?
Got a better name? We were in my kitchen having coffee. The radio was playing a commercial rock station, which was actually okay, because even commercial rock was still good back now.
I don't know, maybe call up the ones who actually invented the Shimmer app and get them on our team. Maybe they have some ideas to defeat Orcon. They might even have a better name than Shimwad.
I already told you, I have no idea who McFlavian is. I just found a message from someone named CK telling me to complete the transcribing to the coding to their app onto my iPhone. God, that was like ages ago. What had it been for me? 5 years? I had no idea what I was getting into when I picked up that Omni magazine and saw me on the cover.
Well, my lamb, I gotta run if I'm gonna make the meeting on time.
Donna started a .com that would allow people to find restaurants based on types of cuisine, view their restaurant's menus, and even show where the restaurant was located in regards to where they were. MapQuest had taken a keen interest in her new venture called Grubhub, the name of which she stole directly from Conway Grubhub. Sort of an FU to Orcon, Conway, and the universe at large. Donna gave me a kiss and left. I was getting ready myself when the doorbell rang. Silly Donna. I gave her a key when she first moved to Austin, but she never used it. She always knocked. I guess that was a way to ensure that I did the same for her. Honey, that's why I gave you it. It wasn't Donna.
Hello, future boy.
Jasmine? It had been, I don't know how many years since I'd last seen her. A lifetime. It felt like a lifetime ago. How many times I wanted to see her, yet how much I feared to do so. I stood there, gawking at her in the doorway like a fool.
You never write, you never call, and here I find you moonlighting with Conway Energy?
Jasmine, I wanted to explain why I ghosted her, but I chickened out. How did you know I was here? Was it Andre? I thought he understood attorney-client privilege.
No, sugar. Your mother sent me.
Are you serious? You are serious, aren't you?
She's worried about you, Chris. And so am I.
How much did she tell you? Probably everything, right? She nodded. Well, then you probably can understand why I didn't reach out to you. You got to stay far away from this, Jasmine. We're dealing with something more powerful than any of us can imagine.
Listen, sugar. I'm a grown woman. I don't need you shielding me from the big bad Orcon.
Jasmine never wanted me or anyone else to be her knight in shining armor. Besides, what good of a knight would I be for her? When I looked into her eyes, all I could think about was how she will die in 2 years.
Besides, you don't have to worry. I'm not here to join your scrappy uprising. I just came to say I soar.
I took a step back, suddenly feeling a little offended. Listen, I know that you might be upset that I didn't reach out to you, but that's no reason to insult my interior design skills. I just went over to IKEA and thought it would be good.
No, Chris. That's the name of the startup. I soar, as in the letter I, and soar, as in flying like a bird, not ouch, I gotta soar. Your mother told me how Conway is interested in providing consumer broadband that will undercut DSL. There's a startup called iSoar who's trying to pawn off their revolutionary technology.
I raised an eyebrow. Are they good? I mean, bad?
They're terrible. A total sham. They claim that they can deliver broadband over regular telephone lines without a DSL router. I didn't need your notes on the 90s to know iSoar's CEO Michael Fain is a total snake oil salesman. His company's bid would languish in our slush pile. But after talking with your mom, I thought maybe iSoar could be useful to you in Conway's attempt to enter the tech market.
Jasmine handed me iSoar's portfolio. I missed her voice. I missed her. Hey, why don't you come on in? Let's catch up.
I really can't stay. I have a meeting with Dell. I just came to deliver a name.
I really appreciate it, Jasmine. Not just the name, but the idea. Everything.
Anything for my old friend.
Jasmine's idea of getting Conway to invest in iSoar was the best plan we had in years, literally. Roy loved it, so did Donna. She made a point to rub it in how I should have just taken her advice and called up Jasmine in the first place. Roy and I met Michael Fain, and Boy, Jasmine was right about this guy. He was a character. He tried to upsell Roy on all sorts of tech that was suspect at best, and most of which I knew didn't exist. If you were going to carry broadband through telephone lines, the only option was DSL. But Michael Fain, the brilliant inventor, found a way around it. All he needed was several million in startup capital. Roy told Skinner that he discovered this innovative little startup, and he gave the green light for Conway Broadband to sink whatever it needed into Eyesore to get its hands on this revolutionary new technology that didn't actually exist. It didn't take long for a funding stream to start pouring into Michael Fain's company, who was claiming that there were delays because of shipment issues here and contract issues there, which was fine by me. I didn't know if Eyesore was that little sham that could, but it was siphoning Conway's capital. One could hope. On my way to work each morning, I'd often drop by Flipnotics, my favorite coffee house until it closed its doors in the 2010s. Sometimes I'd see contemporaneous me pop in for an iced coffee while out on a delivery. Sometimes I saw him pulling into the Stubb Foundation parking lot. And this morning, on my way to see Skinner, I found myself standing right next to him in the elevator.
Could you hit 22 for me?
Thank God we both respected the elevator etiquette to always face forward and stare directly at the display instead of making eye contact. Skinner, Roy, and I were meeting in the conference room. I sat back, trying to act like a disinterested third-party consultant, while Roy pitched the idea of adding streaming services with an Eyesore subscription, which he called Video on Demand, or VOD. The whole VOD thing was Donna's idea. She remembered from round 2 how Michael Fain reeled in investors on a different scheme where he claimed to be working with Viacom to create online video entertainment. In one sense, Fain was way ahead of his time. In another sense, so too was the technological requirements. It would be another dozen years minimum till the infrastructure and the consumer base was ready for it. I made an offhand remark to him, "Hey, wouldn't it be great if we could watch movies online?" Hoping he'd take the bait. And he magically came up with a proposal that would be tacked on to this miracle Eyesore device he was producing that didn't actually exist. Roy had just finished his pitch to add video on-demand service, which would make Conway Broadband the first online video content provider. Skinner furrowed his brows and took several long seconds.
I don't know, Roy. 50 million's a lot of money.
I understand your hesitation, Jeff. It's a lot, but I've done the research. The Eyesore router is revolutionary, and it'll be cheaper than DSL. But we need people to need broadband. Right now, they don't need it.
And you think if Conway Broadband offered video on demand, then people would want it. It would create the need.
Imagine being able to watch Independence Day or any TV show in syndication whenever you wanted.
Skinner seemed intrigued.
We gotta create the need for speed. DSL might give you broadband, but not the need for it. With Conway Broadband and Entertainment, everyone's gonna need to have an Eyesore to access Conway on demand. But there's a lot of licensing to Paramount, Viacom, NBC, what have you. So 50 million's in the price of entry. But once we pay it, we own it.
The CEO studied Roy for several long seconds, and then he turned to me.
What's your thoughts, Chris?
Well, Jeff, nobody can predict with absolute certainty which way the market will bend. There's always risk. You know that. When Jasmine and I forked over everything we had into Apple, I knew there was a risk. But I also knew that Jobs and Wozniak were the disruptors the old guard feared.
And you think Eyesore is one of those disruptors?
I think streaming video on demand could change television permanently. It could likely turn hundreds of millions of people into internet users within the next 3 years, mostly because they want video on demand. It's hard to see right now from where we are, I know. It's okay. I understand if you want to wait and see how well VOD takes off with some other company. We can always wait.
Nah, fuck that. Waiting's for the timid. Let's do it.
I hadn't felt this hopeful in years. I had no memory of Conway offering video on demand back in the 90s. Maybe this meant we changed something within the system of a timeline, something that Orcon wouldn't be able to change. I called up Mom to tell her the news.
Well, that is wonderful news, sweetheart. My son's slaying a beast. Oh, by the way, I'm coming up to visit you, contemporaneous you, next week.
Oh, that's right. I remember having Mom over at my apartment when I first started working at the Stubb Foundation.
Maybe while he's out on deliveries, you and I can see each other.
Oh, yeah, that would be great, certainly.
And I can meet your little lady friend. What's her name? Donna?
Little lady friend. Donna was Mom's age, which was my age, which was really weird. Yeah, I'd love to introduce her to you.
Perfect. What's your address?
I was about to remind her that she couldn't drive, but then I remembered she was still mentally sound and physically strong. She wasn't that poor shriveled creature tormented by the panic and dementia. Not yet.
Sweetheart, what's your address?
Oh, right. Sorry. Got a pencil? It was Friday night. Donna was over at my house in the bathroom doing up her hair for our date. Though I appreciated the gesture, there was no point. I was taking her out to Liberty Lunch to see Retarded Elf, one of my favorite bands from the 90s. Though I concede their name did not age well, Liberty Lunch was going to be hot and packed with sweaty bodies, so her perfect coif was going to get messed up. I invited Roy, but he was out of town, some meeting with NBC, I think. It was hard keeping up with all the shenanigans. It'd been a few days since he and I last spoke. I hoped NBC would be willing to take Conway's money to license their content. Jesus, what's taking her so long? We were going out to a post-punk concert, not a 5-star restaurant. I myself was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. Boom, easy. But Donna said it wasn't for my benefit. Over the sound of the hairdryer, I heard the doorbell ring. I'll get it. I opened the door to find Mom? She drove into town yesterday to visit contemporaneous me. We were going to meet up tomorrow while he was still asleep. I used to sleep in late. Mom, I thought you were with other me tonight. She shook her head.
I told him to go to that Retarded Elf concert with his friends.
She then put her hand on my wrist.
We have to leave now. They're on their way.
Who?
Who do you think? Orcon, Skinner, he knows. He and his goons are on their way.
Wait, what? How do you know this?
No time to explain. We got to leave now.
Donna walked into the living room, putting on her earrings. Her black hair was perfectly set, and she wore her standard 2035 attire. The faux leather jacket with the thumb holes, yoga pants, and the high-heel combat boots. Donna, this is my mom, Lulu. Mom, this is Donna.
Oh, it is a pleasure to meet you, Donna. Oh, she really does look like the lady in that Nagel print. I always thought you spent too much time alone in that room with her.
Mom?
So, Donna, you should get that iPalm of yours and join us because Orcon's about to make short work of you two.
Donna looked over to me. She said no time to explain. Donna grabbed her iPalm and we headed out the door. I unlocked my car.
They'll be looking for your Audi,
Mom said as she led us over to her beat-up Corolla. One day soon, contemporaneous me will buy her a certified used Acura with the money I get from all of my sensory deprivation tank sessions with the Stubb Foundation. We crammed into the Corolla and she pulled onto the street. As we headed down the hill, we saw 2 black Suburbans going the opposite direction towards my house. Donna and I shrunk down. When they were out of sight, Donna leaned over from the back seat to the console.
Miss Lamb? Lulu? I got a safe house out in San Antonio for just such an event. We can head there.
You didn't tell me about a safe house.
It wouldn't be much of a safe house if I told everyone.
I'm not everyone. I'm your lover. I'm your lover. This was so embarrassing. Here we were being chased by temporal overlords, and my mom was driving me and my date like the scene right out of The Karate Kid, and I just professed my love in front of her to said girlfriend for the first time.
We're not going to San Antonio, kids.
The car slowed and we pulled into a parking lot. She turned the engine off and we got outside. It was dark. Even the city lights seemed more subdued. Yet there was something familiar in that shape. I looked up and saw the signature UFO-shaped building hovering above us. I knew this place. It was the Stubb Foundation.
Join us next week for the conclusion of I Got Time Travel in My Pocket. Mixtape Stories hopes you enjoyed this podcast. Be sure to hit like and subscribe.
Roy was played by Weaver Meadows on Fiverr, Donna by Tanya LaFleur, Mom by Annalise Fox, Jasmine by Ebony LaShawn on Fiverr, and Jeff Skinner by Denny Juge. Most of the background music has been provided by Mixkit and Vesalian Studios. In this episode, you also heard the following songs: How's It Gonna Be by Third Eye Blind, Caress by The Brian Jonestown Massacre, Peaches by the President of the United States of America, Take Me Away by Ween, and Sonny Came Home by Sean Colvin.